G'day there viewers, and welcome to my channel. My name is Cliff. I cut gemstones and I live in southern Australia in the state of Victoria. First up, I'd like to wish all my regular subscribers and viewers a happy new year for 2020. I hope it's a safe and healthy new year for you guys. And if you're new to my channel and this is the first time you've dropped in to see me cut gemstones, I'm certainly glad that you can join us, and happy new year to any new viewers also. So as you can see, I'm opening up a parcel which was sent to me by one of my subscribers that lives in Brazil, and this person has kindly sent a whole bunch of gemstones. For privacy reasons, I won't reveal the real name of this person, but I'll drop in a link of this person's YouTube channel because they also cut gems. So as you can see, there's a huge variety of gems in this parcel that this person has sent as a gift, from topaz to citrine, amethyst, prasiolite, some garnets by the look of it, and even some opal. So I would like to thank my subscriber for sending me this wonderful gift. It's an amazing gesture for someone I've never met to send me so many beautiful gems, and will certainly keep me cutting gemstones for quite a while. So I've removed the original packaging, and what I like to do, I like to place all my gems in my own little plastic sachets, and I usually write tickets that I place inside with the type of gem and where these gems came from and the person who sent them. So I've selected a piece of amethyst out of one of the sachets, and as I mentioned in my last video in 2019, I thought this year in 2020 I would like to cut certain designs that are a little bit out of my comfort zone and facet gems that have a little bit more flair that typically faceters from Australia or the US don't normally facet. Some time ago I was watching a YouTube video where a Brazilian chap was faceting amethyst, and he was putting in frosted design work, and I thought to myself, this is something I would really like to try myself. So by looking at his design, I sat down with Gem Cut Studio, and it took me ages to work out all the angles, and then I modified it. So here's the design. So this is the design I came up with by looking at this chap's video. And it's nothing too difficult with the crown, but as you can see with the pavilion, we have a lot of V facets which are all frosted. Now the original design has a lot more facets, so I had to modify it because my gem was not large enough to accommodate all these small V facets, and also I wasn't happy with the critical angle being at 36 degrees, so I've changed that to accommodate the gem I'm cutting, which is around 40 to 43 degrees. So here's a computer generated animation of what the gem should look like once completed, and you can see the effect that the frosted facets have within the gem. So before I start, I'm going to do a quick preform on a 100 grit disc, and it's really important, particularly where you glue the dopstick on, to have a rough surface, but it has to be fairly flat so you get a nice clean contact point between the surface of the gem and the dopstick. So the basic preform is now being done. I've got a nice flat surface where I will glue my dopstick onto. So next step will be to place this gem within my transfer jig and glue the dopstick to it and allow it to set overnight. So it's the following day now. I've transferred the gem into the transfer jig, and I've got a nice clean attachment with my dopstick on the gem. So with this done, I'm all set to start faceting. So my dopsticks have a slot in them, So when I've put the dopstick into the quill has a locator hole, and then I drop the pin in and it slots right into the slot of the dopstick, and then I tighten it up with an Allen key. So the good idea of these dopsticks is because it's not a keyed dopstick, on the transfer, if something goes wrong, I can still align my gem on the base plate without using the pin. So normally I start cutting out the first set of facets on the pavilion, but there is more than one way home when it comes to different techniques and getting the job done. To save time, I've decided to have the index wheel in a free spin mode. Using my 100 grit disc at 50 degrees, I'm just going to round out this pavilion down to depth. So I've rounded out the pavilion, as you can see, and I haven't rounded it out to a culette. I don't need to, because I'll be cutting in shallower facets later on, and that will form the culette. So the next step is to round out the girdle. So I'm about to round out the girdle, and I'm using a 100 grit disc with plenty of water, and I've got the motor at a fairly fast speed, and I've got the protractor angle set at 90 degrees. Now watch my technique. I keep spinning the quill. Meanwhile, as I'm spinning it, I'm lowering the mast with my left hand, listening all the time with my ears as I'm cutting down to depth, lowering, listening, watching all the time. And this is really important. You don't want to be getting flat spots as you're rounding out the girdle, and then later on you'll be faceting the girdle outline. So the girdle is now rounded out, so it's time to cut the first set of 16 facets. So before I start faceting, I'll go through the sequence of the facets with Gem Cut Studio, and it will give you an idea of what I'm doing with the pavilion first up. And believe me, there are a lot of facets. So I'm getting ready to cut 16 facets on the pavilion. I'm using a 600 grit diamond bonded disc with plenty of water. Using plenty of water means that you'll have less scratches on the gem. So I'm using a similar technique as I did when I was rounding out the girdle, using all my senses, using sight and hearing and feel. Really important to do this. This will make you a really good faceter. You will not be relying as much on depth gauges and other forms of technology. So as you're focusing, keep track of your index numbers as you rotate, once again pressing down lightly to depth, listening all the time and looking. You'll hear a light tick tick at the end of the facet. So the first set of 16 facets have been cut, and you can see there's a little crack in the gem on the table area, so hopefully we'll cut through that when I get onto cutting the crown. And I've noticed there's a few little inclusions within the pavilion. So the next step is to cut the girdle facets, and I'm using a 600 grit disc, and then I'll smooth them out with an 800 and then a 3000, and later on they'll be polished. So the girdle is now faceted, and then I'll polish part of the girdle and then move on to the other pavilion facets. In the following scenes you'll see that I've cut and polished all the pavilion facets in order from the girdle outline all the way through to the culette, which is the tip of the pavilion. And I can see already I've made a rookie mistake. I've cut the second set of pavilion facets in too deep. Normally you would do this if you were to polish those facets, however these facets have to be frosted, which means I should have cut them further away from the girdle outline. So I've got these little compromises going on all the way to the culette, which is part of what faceting is, because if you make a mistake you've got to recorrect things. But this is a new style of faceting to me, and as I said earlier on, I'm faceting out of my comfort zone, but I'm learning something also as I'm going along. A lot of gem cutters for some reason struggle to polish quartz. I personally don't have an issue when I'm polishing quartz. In the past I would use cerium oxide and occasionally a resin bonded lap, but these days I find that a tin lap with 50,000 grit diamond compound with the Herco valve oil to be so much more efficient. You get a better polish, you get a lot sharper facets, and it's not as messy. And if you're using resin bonded laps, and for example you enter a gem in a competition, the judge will see that the facets are rounded. You wouldn't think there'd be such a difference in sharpness of facets between one polishing product or another. However, I've spoken to a couple of Australian faceting judges, and they say in competition gems they can tell the difference in the polishing product that people have used. And I've checked this out, and it does seem that metal laps gives you a far sharper finish on the facets. So before I start faceting the crown, let's have a look at the sequence of how these crown facets are done. So we do a transfer where we re-glue the gem onto another dopstick, and you can basically see that with this particular crown it's the same as a standard Portuguese cut. So in the following scenes you'll see some of the sequences of how the crown has been faceted. I started faceting this crown with a 240 grit disc, then moved on to a 600 grit disc, and then onto an 800 grit disc. And then with the second step I used my 800 grit disc and cut in those facets, as you can see now with the second and third step. And in this case you can cut those facets in as close to the girdle with the second step, and then you can polish those in. And likewise with the third step, and of course then you'll facet the table. So here's something I haven't done for a while, cutting the table without my 45-degree adapter. Now some of you guys may not have a 45-degree adapter, so if the mast of your machine is long enough you can set it to 0 degrees and just have the faceting head facing down onto the lap as you see now. Now you do need to be careful, because as you're lowering the gem onto the diamond lap as you're cutting, you do not want to be lowering too fast, else you'll just push the whole faceting head upwards. As a side note, you will need to use your stop lock nut and lock in the faceting head so it's not moving up and down while you're grinding down the table. So if you want to see how much you've trimmed off your table, because you need to make sure you're not trimming off too much. You need to raise the mast first, which I'm doing, unlock the stop lock nut, and gently just lift it up. Be careful not to smash your gem up against the spindle wheel if your machine is running. So I've trimmed it down as far as I want to go because I had a fair bit of material to remove, and then later I'll use my 45-degree adapter and I'll just smooth it out a little bit more. So obviously in this scene also you can see that I've started polishing the crown facets, starting from the girdle outline and then moving all the way up to the table, then polishing the table last. And that way you can squeeze all your facets into meat when you're polishing. So in the following scenes you'll see how I've polished all the crown facets all the way up to the table. Then I get out my 45-degree angle adapter and just shave a little bit more off the table with a finer grade diamond lap, and then I polish it. So we're getting closer to the end of another video, and I would like to personally thank all my regular viewers and subscribers for taking the time to watch the first video of mine in 2020. And if you're new to my channel and you have some questions to ask about cutting gemstones, please leave some comments in the comment section. I always read my comments and I do try to get back. Sometimes I miss them, so just type out another question again and hopefully I'll see it. And also for those people who are new, we have the final reveal coming up where you see the gem in all its glory once it's off the dopstick. This time I'm actually going to film it in sunlight because subscribers have asked about that, and on the rotator. So until next time everybody, take care of yourselves and it's bye for now.